I'm Bonnie. Welcome to Tarot with Bonnie and Peter, where we take the mystery out of the tarot and help you bring this ancient practice into everyday life. In this podcast, we'll talk about life, tarot, and everything in between. So grab your tarot deck, get comfortable, and start your journey to tarot with Bonnie and Peter. Welcome to Tarot with Bonnie and Peter. I'm Bonnie, and today we're going to talk about something that Peter and I kind of talk a lot about on this podcast, but we decided to make an entire episode dedicated to the Stalker card. So, right? So I think I referred to this. I referred to the Stalker card the other day to somebody as, oh, is this card haunting you? And I'm like, oh, haunting doesn't sound so good. Stalker might sound a little bit better. But we're going to talk about the Stalker card today. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And I think we've all had these moments of cards that keep showing up. So when we talk about the Stalker card, we're referring to the card that just keeps showing up in your reading. So this could be, if you're doing your daily draws and you keep getting the same card over and over, or you do readings, maybe they're not as frequent as every day, but it's like, oh my God, this card keeps showing up for me. We're going to talk about, why that might be happening and some personal experiences that Peter and I have had with our own Stalker cards. So, hey, Peter, how are you?
Good, Bonnie, good. And when you mentioned Stalker, because I was like, I don't know if stalker is a positive word either. Nobody brags about having a stalker, but I can't think, so if anybody's listening and can think of, a word that might be softer, but in the tarot community, when people talk about a stalker card, they know exactly, what it means. I even think sometimes, and I think we've mentioned this as well in past episodes, in client work, that you could have a string of sort of client sessions when a card shows up through multiple client readings. And I always think that that's also something to pay attention. It might, anyways, we'll talk about what that could signify. But that can also be a real indicator of that stalker card energy. So, but I'm fine.
I love
I'm
what
fine.
you said.
You asked,
Oh.
I'm good.
Yay. I'm glad you're good. Oh, I do love that you just said that, Peter, because I would love to circle back and talk about that because I think that's really important too. And, especially if you're doing an event and you're reading for multiple people, a lot of times the same card keeps showing up in different readings for different people. So that's also really significant too. So I would love to talk about that.
Yeah, I actually, if I can, just an anecdote. I remember, and this had been years ago, I was doing a show not at Hockley Valley, the Hockley Valley Resort. Yeah. And I was doing a trade show there, and I had myself set up and was doing readings, which I haven't done in a long time. But I remember, I can't remember what the card is, but I remember what my response was. Is I actually went out of the hall, put, kind of a little, back in 5 minutes, I actually went into the bathroom and threw the cards into a clean spot of the floor and then mixed them all up and put them back again, thinking maybe it's how I'm shuffling the cards. I thought I just wanted to go and give them a good solid mix. And I was like, and still the card, I think it might have showed up less, but I think it showed up in the next reading that I did. And I was like, oh, well, there it is. No, Ace of Wands, I think it was the Ace of Wands, but anyways.
Well, the Ace of Wands. Yeah. That's a good stalker card to have.
Yeah, it was pretty good stalker card. And I would have been in the early phases, I think, of, trying to get my business going. And so good card to have when you're trying to get creative juices flowing and get that initiative going, get that quick start. But I remember thinking, not out of frustration, but going, wow, okay, thinking from a practical perspective, is it me? Am I doing something that's contributing to this stalker energy? And what does the tarot do? It literally gives me the middle finger, which is, the Ace of Wands saying, no, it's not you. It's not you. I'm going to, give you a little taste of humility. It's me.
Well, you know what I even just thought of too? I wonder if people, depending on, maybe what astrological season we're in, or if something really intense is happening energetically, if people are actually pulling very similar cards because we're actually in the energy of that. So that would be an interesting, like what do you call it? Not a test, like a research, something that you do to be like, what cards are people pulling in the season that we're in astrologically, and see if there's somehow a correlation.
Oh, and now you're getting into the things that we cover in the cards of the zodiac, because that's often what I tell people to keep an eye on is what cards are being pulled that are linked to either aspects that are currently happening, or like you said, the season. Like we're Taurus season coming into Gemini season in the next couple of days, but so what do? You look for, Hierophant, you look for the Lover's card, you look for the cards that, are the Taurus cards, which are the 5, 6, and 7 of Pentacles. So you look at the Gemini cards, which are 8, 9, and 10 of Swords. Those cards come up.
Mm-hmm. Wow, look at that.
Yeah, there you go. Right? People learning things right out of the gate today. Tarot with Bonnie and Peter.
Do you want to go first? Do you want to tell us about some stuff?
You go ahead. You go ahead. I loved your explanation of what a stalker card is and how they show up. And I know you have a couple of relatively recent personal experiences, so I know I would love to hear them, and I know everybody else would too. So
sure. Okay. I have a couple. So I might share my first one. This is when I'm teaching workshops, I often share this story because this is sort of how tarot became such an integral part of my daily practice, and how I say tarot actually changed my life when I started using it regularly. So when I first started really studying the tarot and pulling cards, a lot of people know this already. I would pull 3 cards instead of just one card. I love threes. I would pull 3 cards because I really wanted to understand the cards and see the patterns and learn them. So my stalker card, which still does stalk me, which means I still have some work to do in this respect, was the 7 of Swords. So I would get the 7 of Swords a lot, and I'd also get the Tower a lot. And for me, those 2 cards were similar in the messaging that I was getting. So for me, I was seeing those cards as like hiding. So the 7 of Swords was a really hard card for me to understand what it meant when I first started working with the cards, because I'm like, I just didn't really resonate with a lot of the general meanings of what that card was. But then somebody told me, they're like, I think it came up as we were doing a practice session with somebody, and the 7 of Swords came up, and I said to her, I'm like, well, how do you feel about this card? She goes, I see hiding. Like, this card is like something that you're hiding. And I was like, dingo, like that clicked for me. And I'm like, that's what this card means to me. It means that I'm hiding either a part of myself, or I'm just not allowing myself to be seen, not in a way that's deceptive or like stealing, but like literally hiding myself from the world, or hiding what it is that I want to put out there. So that became really significant for me, and it kept showing up. And the Tower for me as well was like, I was hiding in the Tower, and it was like, if you don't come out on your own, you're going to be forced out of this hiding place, right? Like coming out of your comfort zone. So that was really significant and important for me to keep getting those messages, because it was like, if I don't change, these cards are going to keep showing up. But as I was getting those cards, I was also getting the 6 of Wands all the time and the Queen of Wands. And those are very different, right? Like when we think about the 6 of Wands and the Queen of Wands, it's like being seen. It's like showing up. So it was like, this is what you're doing over here. You're hiding. But what we really want you to do is this thing over here, where you're you, and you're showing up in your authenticity and doing what it is that you're really passionate about. And when you do that, it helps other people to do the same thing for themselves. So it's not showing up in this egotistical way, but it's this like, be yourself, be unapologetically you, do what you love to do, because we're wands, we're fire, it's passionate. because you need to be seen. So it was such a beautiful example of my life just being mirrored back to me. And that's what I teach people. I'm like, the cards are just going to keep showing up. And you're going to notice eventually that if you don't change anything, those cards are just going to keep coming and they're going to say, hey, I'm still here. So that's one experience. I mean, I can go into the other ones that I've had lately, but maybe you want to talk to us about something,
No,
you know,
I love
about
learning
like,
about that experience for you. Like you said a few things. I thought that the last one, the most kind of, we'll go most recent and backwards. You talk about the idea of the tarot mirroring back at us, and that idea of tarot as mirror, I always think is such a powerful concept. So when a card comes and stalks you, think about what it is reflecting back, on you. What part of your life is the tarot trying to show you? And then you said, the tower as a place to hide. And I thought, I had never thought of the tower like that before, but of course, because I always think of the tower as something that's being, shaken down to the foundations. But of course, if it's a faulty house, if it's something with shaky foundations and you're inside of it, then you're hiding. You're not recognizing either the weakness or the lack of structure that's there. You're just there because, and you had said, because it's a comfort zone for you. Well, the tower card is not going to concern itself whether you're, there because you're comfortable. The tower card is going to shake things, shake, bake, and break things, because that's what it does. So, if you're inside the structure, there's a pretty good chance that the structure is going to crumble around you, as opposed to, the other two cards, the two wands, the six and the queen. Show thyself, bring thyself forward, do so victoriously, do so with commanding power. In that queen, step out of the tower, step out of yourself, and shine that thing that lights you up, right? Those wands, shine that out in the world. I love it. What a beautiful narrative for four cards that, that show up. Thank you for sharing that. I thought that was, in and of itself, those four cards almost represent a reading, right? So that's the same. If you see cards that are showing up, pause, and maybe intentionally be like, okay, I got two or three cards that are showing up. Let me pull them out. What narrative do these cards tell me? How can I reflect their story back onto myself, which is, basically what you did. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's sort of why I'm like, tarot helped me do the thing that I was the most afraid of, which is actually talking about tarot and telling people that I do this work. So it was like, oh, the thing that you're most afraid to talk about is like the part of you that's being hidden, and we need you to come like out into the world and talk about it. So it was my catalyst for change and to just keep being reminded of what I was actually doing. Like the tarot will show you what's actually happening. Like, you're still hiding.
Yeah. 76 episodes, 70 plus hours of talking about the tarot. I'm pretty sure you're out there now, Bonnie. I don't know whether or not, you
right.
This would qualify as hiding, but, I hear what you're saying, because it is. It's when you think, oh, here I am, especially with both those wand cards, and what a difference between that and then the energies around the Seven of Swords and the Tower as well, right? They'd be seen as more challenging cards. Hiding in both cases.
Because usually, right, I think maybe we refer to stalker cards as like stalker because it's not so great, because it's usually the ones that we don't want to stalk.
Yeah.
It's like those swords cards or the tower or the death card, which I've been getting a lot of lately. I think if they were like really happy cards, maybe we wouldn't call them stalkers. But I always say, I'm like, we learn the most from the cards that seem the most confronting to us. Those are where our big lessons are. So... But anyway, how about you? You have a really interesting story about how you started off with the tarot, and the cards that kept showing up for you.
And not, certainly not definitely a powerful card. And I think at times can be one of the most powerful cards in the deck, or at least potential to be one of the most powerful cards in the deck, was the Magician. And as I was starting to make that shift from, personal practice to a more professional practice, and was using the tarot as that sage, that guide, the card that kept showing up, whether it was, one card, whether it was through whatever I was doing, the magician was showing up on a continuous basis. And, I certainly knew what it meant, but I didn't know how it applied. And then I was like, well, hold on a second here. You're trying a new venture. You kind of, and at that time too, I was really sort of looking at the psychological aspect of the tarot, particularly the major arcana, trying to really do some work, of the journey of the Fool. So thinking of it, the start of a new journey, sort of being that Fool making their way through each transition of the major arcana, going from, the Fool to the Magician to the High Priestess and so forth and so on. And then I'm like, well, the magician is, and I remember this from somewhere, and I've said it before, and I can't remember where, but it's certainly not mine. The magician is that first iteration of the Fool after movement. So the Fool is complete and utter potential. There's no movement whatsoever. And the minute the Fool does a hair of a move, they become the magician. Mm-hmm. They're no longer potential. They're now full will. They recognize their capacity to be able to do things, to bring things forward, to manifest. And I was like, to me, it started to send me the signal that I was no longer the Fool in this journey, that I had developed the tools that I needed, that they were sitting on the table in front of me. And it impacted me so much that I think every iteration of any kind of website or writing that I've done, I've always entitled The Magician's Musings. So the idea of, the identification or identifying with the magician itself. If you were looking to my right, and you can't because I'm on a desktop, I actually have a wooden kind of a laser burned image of the magician card hanging right above my keyboards as a reminder that says, if I'm manifesting music, for example, I'm personifying the magician. I think I've mentioned it before. If I haven't, I'll mention it here. I have a permanent tattoo of the 4 tools of the magician based on the images of Isabella Rotman's This Might Hurt Tarot right there on my right shoulder. Like there, I carry the tools of the magician everywhere. So when we talk about the idea of a card, stalking you and having an impact, and then, almost being that mirror, that reflection of who you are, and then almost changing your mindset of how you approach things. The magician was that first iteration for me. It was, and the magician is really also at the very start of the journey. It's card number 1. So, as much as it is a powerful card, it is a card that has so much more to learn, right? 19 more steps to go through. So for me, it also resonated with the idea of lifelong learning, that the magician has to go to, step 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to step 21 before it completes the journey, comes back to becoming the Fool and making its way through that journey again. So it had so many touch points for me, the idea of lifelong learning, the idea of bringing things to life, of manifestation, of creating things out of nothing, of recognizing the importance of the tools that you have in front of you, the idea of sharpening the saw or honing your tools, and making your capacity to be able to bring that forward that much stronger. All of those things were embodied inside the magician. And I got those lessons bit by bit as the card would kind of keep coming up and coming up and coming up for me. So I don't know. That was, that was kind of where I was at with that particular card.
I love that. And what a great card to have as the card that keeps showing up for you.
Right?
Oh, yeah. And they also love, like the magician really is
I've had the tower before too. So, it's not all, I was going to say, it's not all roses. There's roses literally in the magician card, but yeah.
You're right. Exactly. But yeah, just the magician with knowing, I think it's knowing that we have the power to create the life that we desire, right? And it's taking that action and really embodying that. So I think that's great, Peter.
Yeah. Well, and I love reminding people, because I agree about the magician being powerful, but when it comes up, I do like to remind, people and myself that the magician is a card that is at the very start of a journey. It is just one step removed from the Fool as well. So sometimes people will think, oh, a great and big and powerful card. And it is, but it is also a card with a whole bunch of potential as well, right? So it is a card
Yes.
of manifestation
Yeah.
and power, but it is one of potential. The magician really hasn't, accomplished much, and sometimes they can go in two different directions. They can be, supportive and manifesting, but the magician can also trick and deceive and, and make things, vanish into thin air. So,
Yeah, but I mean, I think before anything is able to be manifest or for us to take that step is this idea that this can actually happen, but I have to take some kind of action, right? And that action is like the belief that I'm going to do this thing or that I have the ability to make this happen, right? So,
yes. Yeah, no, it's,
yep.
yeah. So it was, anyways, it was kind of the first card that I remember that had an impact. And this is where I would tell people now, don't dismiss cards that show up for you, because it sometimes happens and you don't recognize it until, it's like 3 or 4 or 5 times and you're like, wait a minute, I know I've seen this card before. And as soon as you get that recognition, then start watching for the card and maybe even reflect on, well, when were those? I've seen this before. Think about when those cards came out and try and reflect on what they might be telling you, and don't beat yourself up if the message that it's trying to tell you or the image that, it's trying to reflect on you isn't apparent right away, because that might not, it might not have, the message it's trying to give you just might not have given you yet, or you're not picking it up yet. So be patient with yourself too. The card might have some more to say. It might show up later. So who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really important to keep in mind when we are pulling cards for ourselves and when we keep getting the same, because I know I do this. I get so many times the same card days in a row.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you again? Like, I just like, because I write about my card, like I have a really not in-depth, but I mean, my daily reading practice is one of my favorite things that I do every day. And like, that's like so sacred to me. So when, I automatic write, I research the card, I look things up. And then when I get the same card again, I'm like, but I just did all this yesterday and you're asking me to do this again. But, again, it's like, okay, it's showing up again. So this messaging is even stronger. What is it that I'm either not getting or, maybe looking at it from a different perspective, or I'll pull different books and be like, oh, maybe there's another book. Or sometimes I'll pull another deck and look at that card in that deck. So I think a lot of times we want to dismiss, like, oh, this damn card keeps showing. Even if it's a good one, you're like, okay, I got it. Like, I already saw you and you're here again. So it's almost like tapping into that frustration of why are you frustrated that you keep seeing the same card? Because it's showing up for a reason.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the beauties of these cards. It's like the message is the same.
Well, that's exactly it, right? I think about the time we were doing our dinner with the majors, and, I knew the one card that I was dreading, and I'm almost positive that it was the second last or the last card that showed up. We had, 4 cards. The moon card was one of them. And I'm positive that, as I was kind of showing, I'm like, okay, well, I got a 25% chance, and that moon card is definitely coming to dinner with me. And sure enough, that's what happened. But the idea is, I think a card like that one where, if you're upfront and say, I have a lot to learn still from you, then sometimes the tarot will say, yes, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to be able to learn that as well by showing up more often so that you can reflect on me a little bit more, or reflect on me in combination with other situations, or in combination with other cards, or on different days when you are bringing, a different part of yourself to your practice. Some days you're 100%, some days you're 60%, some days you're 10%. And cards can look differently depending on, on what you're bringing to the table, both, literally and figuratively, right? So.
I love that, Peter. You just said something that's like gold. You know, if this card keeps coming up for you, you could even look at the card and ask the card, like, what is it that you're trying
Yeah.
to tell me that I can't
Mhm.
see? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it could even be that, like, it just keeps coming up to be like, you're not getting it, you're not getting it, or you're overlooking the underlying message of this. So I love that. I'm going to do that and really reflect on the card and be like, what is it that you're trying to tell me that I haven't been able to see or understand until now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Imagine
that's me.
that is your
Love
3-card
that.
spread, right? Imagine that is your 3-card spread. Like, okay, listen, card, whatever card you happen to be, what are you trying to tell me that? And then if the card shows up while you're asking that question, then always interesting. So
Have you ever, and this happens to me all the time. I honor jumpers all the time. So if a card jumps out, then I'll honor that. And sometimes when I go to shuffle my cards in the morning, I happen to see the bottom card of the deck. And I'm like, oh, am I supposed to look at that message? Or am I just being like too in my head, like, oh, I saw the message, right? So I'm like, no, if that message is supposed to come to me, it'll show up in my reading. So a lot of times that card ends up coming up in my, so I know what the card is because I saw it on the bottom. And as I shuffle, I'm like, if I'm meant to have this, and then it shows up in my reading.
yeah, that's
That
interesting.
happens sometimes
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Or with I'm the same. You know, jumpers. I use the same term, and will pay attention when they pop out. If I'm doing client work as well, because sometimes a jumper happens and the person can't see it, I'll just point it out and just say, make note. Don't know if this means anything to you, but this card just, popped itself out of the deck, wanted to make itself known. I always look when I'm finished shuffling, and it's even online, it's usually something that I do in conjunction with, the person at the other end of the screen. They're always dictating, tell me when to stop. And as soon as they engage in that practice and tell me when to stop, I always look at the bottom card. It's actually the very first card that I would look at interpreting, because I think it has, and I know we're kind of off topic, but I think it has, and maybe it is Stalker like, it's at the particular time until you start revealing cards, the bottom card's the only one that's visible. Every other card is actually stacked on
Right.
top of one another. So I think there's, in the same way, I think a Stalker card has a message, a jumper has a message. I think the bottom card can also have a message, something that at this particular point in time is the only thing that you can see, or it needs to reveal itself, or it might be the foundation or the hidden message, like those kinds of things, that a bottom card or that a hidden card can reveal until you start revealing other things. Stalker card can be the same, right? Here's a message. You're not getting it? I'd like you to get it a little bit more, so I'm going to show up a little bit more often. I mentioned Susie Chang, who tracks her daily draws, and actually, she has said this before, that she's a data geek, and I think she's going on 7 years of tracking her daily draw. So, 7 times 300 plus is over 2,000 iterations of her daily draw, and keeps track of the frequency of cards that she draws. So literally has data around what cards would be Stalker cards and which ones would not. And a couple of her books talks about that experience too. So that's, for those that would be interested in looking at that, check out her podcast, which I think is literally called the Tarot Podcast, and or any of her books, which she publishes under T. Susan Chang. But does some great stuff with that too.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I do that too. I track all the cards that I get in journal. And I don't know how many journals now I have, because I do that every day. But I always think about that. I'm like, I should go back and like literally in an Excel spreadsheet, put all the cards. And I think I did that at one point. I was kind of doing that manually on a sheet so that I could see, in this past week, how many times I get this card, or this past month, or this past year. And then you can start to see, patterns of, the cycle that you were in at that time, to be like, oh, interesting that this card kept showing up when this particular thing was happening in my life, right? Like sometimes when we see it in front of us, then it just becomes so much clearer rather than just every day, going, it's kind of like tracking a food journal, right? Like I eat pretty healthy. And then you start writing everything down and you look at it and you're like, oh, maybe I...
You mean I'm not supposed to consume 3,700 calories a day? Oh. No, that's exactly it, right? I love that analogy of a food journal, because we think that whether it's healthy or well, or we bring in enough or not enough calories until we start writing things down. And the tarot's the same, right? We think we have a clear picture of, or we think that the cards show up in relatively the same frequency. I mean, that's hard to gauge because 78 cards, you really would have to do something kind of longitudinal to be able to get a sense as to what's showing up more often and less often. But yeah, going back to look at journals would be an interesting exercise. And then if it's like, oh, when this is happening in my life, these kind of cards seem to show up, then, if you start seeing them again, maybe the tarot was saying, just give you a little heads up. We had some changes that would happening in, X period, when, this card came up. You've seen it a couple of times now. So why don't you just stop and take a look at that particular aspect of your life again and see whether or not there's a lesson that needs to be learned there. So tarot's great that way, isn't it? Just awesome.
So good. And even recently, I don't know if you've had any of these Stalker cards recently come up for you, but I've recently had 2 major Stalker cards, and I've purchased a couple of new Oracle decks lately. So I've been pulling some Oracle decks with my tarot in the morning. So probably about a month ago, for like a few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, I was getting the Emperor all the time. I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, thank you, Emperor. And I need Emperor energy in my life. It's not something that comes very natural to me because I'm very free-spirited, and I have a lot of ideas, and I'm very creative. So boundaries and structure can be hard for me, like to sort of contain all of the things I want to do. So I get Emperor energy, and I receive that, and I welcome that. I don't see it as oppressive as maybe some people might.
Right.
But I've also been getting the Death card. Like, I don't know how many times. And in this particular Oracle deck that I have, it's called Death and Magic. I think it's the Power God Oracle. I shouldn't really look up the proper name. It's by Colette Baron Reed, and it's the Power Goddess Oracle or something like that.
Right.
And it's the Death and Magic card. And I kept getting this card over and over. And then even with the tarot, so even in Oracle cards, like if you pull Oracle cards in combination with tarot, or even just Oracle, right? Like a lot of these messages overlap. So even though I was pulling an Oracle card that was like Death and Magic, it has the same meaning. It's like, what are you holding that needs to let go? So in my head, I wasn't like, oh my God, someone's going to die, because I don't read it like that. But it was like, and this major things that are happening in my life right now that are now like I'm seeing, I'm like, okay, I get it, right? So sometimes it does. You mentioned this earlier. It can take a few days to understand, like, yeah, when the Death card comes, I'm like, yeah, I know there's things I need to let go of so something new can come in, but it keeps coming and coming. It's almost like showing like, this is going to be really important for you. And when you're in that energy, understand that there's things that you're going to have to let go of that might feel really hard. And for me, this isn't devastatingly hard. It's just something that I'm going through. But I'm like, okay, I totally get it now. Thank you. So it'll be interesting to see if that card keeps showing up now that I'm sort of in that and I understand the messaging of that. So it was like the Emperor was showing up to show me like routine and structure, and like moving forward is going to be really important. And then the Death card was coming after that as my constant reminder, like, you're in this, like if you want to build a stability over here, there's all this other stuff that you need to let go of. And now where I am, it makes 100% sense. So that's the power of how these cards can help you. On a daily basis, right? Or, whatever, if you don't have a daily practice, that's fine. But when you're reading the cards, like we really develop these relationships with the cards, and you're having these conversations, and they're honest conversations with the cards. So.
Yeah. And that idea of, the Death card, which again could be worrisome, seeing that showing up on an ongoing basis, but recognizing, as you did, that something's got to go, right? Something, the Death card is telling me what has to go. And then that it's showing up on a number of occasions prompts the question, well, okay, all right, I'm hearing you now. Something has to go. Well, what has to go? And then, you can just kind of work your way through. And sometimes having challenging cards show up more than once when you're doing either a daily or frequent practice helps you manage them, because the death card is one-off. It's not an easy card to deal with, right? It means having to let go or end something, or whether it shows up once or it shows up 10 times. But having it show up, 3 or 4 times over a short period of time is a way to sort of soften the message and say, okay, I hear what you're telling me now. I understand. Because like the tower, like the idea of going to sit inside something, for a comfort zone, at some point in time, if the tower is the energy that's going to show itself, the tower is going to show itself. And the idea of death, the idea of ending, the idea of, of having to slide things off of the plate, if you don't do it, then the universe is going to do it. It's going to say, all right, fair enough then. You don't want to, you want to keep, all these things going? Fine. We're going to figure out, give me the opportunity for choice, but we're going to pick, we're going to pull a string. We're going to end things for you, which is never anywhere near as fun. Never as fun.
No.
No,
absolutely.
Yeah. My card was, and it, because I don't do a daily practice, but I do practices particularly around new and full moon. The card that has shown up over the last little bit, so that would be over the last kind of 6 or 8 weeks, funny enough, is the Two of Pentacles. So that,
that
right?
makes so much sense.
Of course it does, right? Of course it does. We just had a great conversation, right? Like the idea of, trying to balance things when there may be chaos in the background, the idea of reflecting on how many balls do you have in the air, the idea of grounded practice and recognizing, inside of Pentacles, that it is extremely important to make sure that whatever you do, you are balancing, your personal groundedness with all the other things that you have to do. And it probably just clicked to me as we were having this conversation, because I was like, there's a card, it's kind of niggling in the background that's been showing up. I'm like, it's the bloody Two of Pentacles. And of course, based on, the conversation we were having before we hit record, of course it's the Two of Pentacles.
You can't make it up, Peter.
Of course it's the Two of Pentacles. I can identify what the chaos is in the background. I can identify the standing on one foot. I can identify the balls that are going, back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's my most recent kind of stalker experience. And again, not a negative card, just a card that does a great job upon reflection. And sometimes when you're embroiled in a situation, it's hard to see it. And what the tarot does is it because it's kind of a snapshot or a mirror, and that Mary Greer talks about the tarot as mirror. She actually has a book called there's Tarot Constellation, Tarot Mirrors. It might be out of print now, but it's a phenomenal book that does a lot of reflective work on the tarot. What it is, it's a mirror of who we are. Use, mirror of our soul, mirror of our higher self, reflection on who we are. Those cards can be like, okay, here, I'm just going to hold this mirror up. Oh, you didn't catch the message? I'm just going to hold it up again. Oh, can you see the Two of Pentacles in your life? No? All right. Next time we work with it, let me hold it up again. Can you see it now? Right? It's like that old commercial that says, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? How about now? Can you hear me now? What is that? Verizon?
Yeah, when you're driving.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
Or when you're driving through a bad area and you're on the phone with somebody, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Exactly, right? That's what
I still can't hear you. That's so funny. Yeah.
I would love to know people's experiences, though. If, let us know in the comments, like if you have some of these card experience or if you have another word for a stalker card, let us know. But we would love to be able to engage with you a little bit more in those experiences. So.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to circle back to what you said earlier about when you're doing readings, right? Like for people and you're consistently seeing those same cards. Mm. Would you want to talk a little bit about that?
No, you circled back. So
I want very recently I did a market where I was doing readings, and a lot of the same cards kept coming up for people. And it is interesting to see, like, those same, and it's funny because I think in my head, I'm like, oh, if I remember I did a market many years ago, and two sisters came, and they didn't hear each other's readings. They had their own individual readings, but some of the cards were the same. And I'm like, oh, if they go back and talk to each other, they're gonna be like, ah, she just said the same thing to me like she said to you. But it's like, it's the same messaging over and over. And what I noticed this past weekend was there was a lot of gratitude that came up in the cards that I was pulling for people, and a lot of new beginnings. And, when you're reading for other people and you keep saying sort of, I mean, everybody's messaging is different,
Right.
even if the card is the same, depending on the other cards that are there, their situation. But sort of that underlying energy can be very similar. And then I have to reflect on myself of like, oh, like this is much of a reading for me as it is for them. So even when we're in those spaces where we're reading for other people and we're noticing those same cards that keep coming up, we're all sort of connected energetically too, right? So that message is going to be very important for them. It was also really important for the other person that you ran for. And it's also really important for you as the person who's also relaying that information. So there is a lot of connection and a lot of synchronicity with these cards. So even keep aware of those cards that are showing up consistently for your clients. That can also be messaging for you too, right? So it's really, really interesting when and there's some cards I never pulled. Like I never pulled the Dove card. Like I didn't pull one scary card in like the 9 different readings that I did.
Wow.
So again, I was like, oh, this was they were more about beginnings and joy and gratitude and like, seeing that just uncomplicated joy in our life. So that's really interesting as well.
And I love that you reflected on things that didn't show up, because I think that's also, especially if you track your cards, I'm not saying that that's the opposite of a stalker card, but that also can resonate. It can have significance. And if you're doing work, like you were doing with the kind of mystic fair, if you're doing work and certain cards are showing up, it might also speak to the energy of the space that you're working in itself. So if it was the idea of new beginnings and the idea of gratitude, that might have been what the collective is kind of bringing to that space too. So I also think it can certainly be a message for you. It can be a string or something that threads all readings together, but that it can also be reflective of a more general, I'll say almost collective in sort of the space that you're in, and might just be a general message. I find I get that too sometimes, because now I've changed my calendar, my schedule, so that I just do readings on 1 or 2 days a week. So I can find myself sometimes with multiple clients on one given day. And when a card shows up multiple times, I'm the same. I'm like, this card has shown up, and I'll ask myself, so is it a message for me? Is it a message for them? Or is it highlighting something greater than either one of us? Is it a message for the collective, or is it a message that's trying to say something about the time that we're in right now, or the time and space that we're in right now? So, because the tarot can speak in all kinds of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, yeah.
I know. Thank you for circling back to that, because I'd forgotten about that. And we talked about that, very, very early on. So that can definitely happen for those of you that do work, or even starting to work with clients. Pay attention to, cards that are showing up, or even cards that are not showing up. Cards that are not showing up. If you're not seeing some of the harder cards, then it might be that the energy that's around right there isn't hard, or vice versa. My goodness, every time I'm reading, I got the 9 of Swords and the 10 of Swords and the 5 of Pentacles. And it might be, and sometimes as well, sometimes it's an example to just say, okay, I need to shield myself, or I need to ground myself, or I need, let me take 15 minutes between and, do a bit of a cleanse, or whatever that happens to be as well. But it might also be, wow, there's a really heaviness around what's being presented today.
Yeah. For sure.
All right.
Okay. Do we want to end by pulling a card each? We haven't done that in a while.
We haven't done that in a while. And, you can see my enthusiasm. I literally have my deck sitting right here to pull a card. So, we haven't done this in a while. So for those of you who haven't, seen our episodes, our past episodes, for the first, 60, 65 episodes, we would, as partly a learning experience, but also sometimes often a reading that would turn out to be a reading for either Bonnie or I or both for people who would resonate as they're listening, we would draw one card. And today we're going to do that. I've got my Ethereal Visions Tarot by Matt Hughes, the Luna edition, which I pulled out and I shuffle that one.
I love that. I have that on my shelf.
I know.
But today I'm using the Muse Tarot by Chris Ann. I love this. Well, I love all the decks, but
that's the collage one, right? Yeah. All right. Let me see. What are we drawing today?
Oh no.
What card did you? What card? It is not the Magician.
Is it the Two of Pentacles? Oh,
it's the Death card. So,
there's not much to say about that now.
There's not, right? It's so funny because that's a perfect, I'll say culmination and when we talk about what we've got going on, me pulling this card is going to be so much clearer. The idea of the Two of Pentacles and what needs to be balanced, and then the Death card coming up and saying, yeah, balance is great. Some stuff needs to go. Some things need to end, serve their purpose. And we've talked about this many, many, many times. The Death card is sometimes a very welcome card when things have, and I say that about anything and everything, that there are some things that have a lifespan. And if they have a lifespan, it means they have a death span as well. It means that at some point in time, they no longer serve their purpose. And it is very hard as humans to be able to determine, well, what is that? And how can I deal with that moving forward? Sometimes the Death card is a recognition that when things end, we go through the death process. We grieve, we are angry. We do all of those things that we would do when, death is a tangible thing. So when death is more, when it's more figurative, when it's kind of the death of something, then we kind of go through that. So, this is the Death card. And you've got somebody who's sitting there in grief or sorrow, and you've got, the kind of Grim Reaper in this particular card as well. The number isn't prominent, so they borrowed from the idea of the Nassé deck. Where you can see the 13 in there, but it's sort of tucked off into the background, whereas that's not the case with all the other cards. So I don't know. I don't have much to say about, because this one speaks to me loud and clear. So,
well, it was funny when you were talking about how the Two of Pentacles was, somewhat stalking you. Yeah. I'm like, wouldn't that be funny if you pulled the Death card with that? Because, again, that's kind of like, okay, something is out of balance. What needs to, and then you pull the Death card. I'm like, right? You can't make it up. That's just the.
What would you add, or offer with the Death card as far as a reading goes?
I think the Death card can be welcoming. Like I said, it's been coming up for me.
It can be challenging too.
It can be challenging, 100%. If you're going through something that's very difficult, honor that, because sometimes when we experience a loss, that's not something that feels really good. Right. Then, absolutely honor that.
And but Bonnie, I'm gonna, if I may, we talked about frequency, and I'm almost positive that this is a card that has never shown up in our one card draw at the end of an episode, despite the fact that we would have probably drawn well over 78 different cards, because we've done it with our guests. I'd have to go back and take a look, but I'm almost positive that, and we have had cards that have shown up more than once. This is a card I don't think that has ever shown up when we've shuffled and drawn a card. So it's interesting.
Yeah, that's true. We've talked a lot about it because we talk a lot about some of those uncomfortable cards, but you're right. I don't think it's ever
shown up.
Yeah, you're right.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was just going to say, sometimes we hold on to something so tightly that something new can't begin. And that's what I always think about the Death. And sometimes if you're not really sure what the Death card, it's like, okay, yeah, I know I need to let go of something. I don't know what that thing is. You can also pull another card to be like, what is this? Is this something material? If a pentacle shows up. It could be something material that you have to let go of, like maybe clean out. I say this all the time with the death card. Clean out your closet. It's probably so full, nothing new can come in. Or like decluttering some, sometimes we hold on to things. If it's swords, it could be like a belief or something that you think that isn't allowing you to move forward, right? So sometimes the death card is like, okay, I get it, but I'm not really sure what it is I'm supposed to let go of. Sometimes we can pull another card to see what that might be alluding to. So that's just that. I will share my card.
There you go.
I love this card. So this is Four of Inspiration, which is the Four of Wands. I've also been getting this card quite often. It's another card that I've seen in the past few weeks that's been coming up for me. And I do really love this card. And I think what it's saying for me personally is that, sometimes we're on a path, right? And we know where we want to go. And we've done a lot of work already. We're sort of at this point where we're like, well, I'm not there yet. And we tend to forget how far we've come on this journey. And I think the beauty of the Four of Wands is that it's an opportunity to be like, hey, I've done a lot of stuff to get to where I am. There is a little bit of stability here. It is a four. Like, this ties in beautifully with my emperor who keeps stalking me. And it's like, how can we just be proud of where we are right now? How can we celebrate our accomplishments so far? So this could be an opportunity to really celebrate. It could mean, right? Like, actually tonight I'm going out to see a play. So with my daughter, who bought me a beautiful gift for Mother's Day. So this is a really great way to be like, oh my God, like, enjoy this moment. So many times they're fleeting, these moments, right? It's like, oh, like, we go to a party or we go to a celebration and we're just kind of there, but we're not really there enjoying it. This card is really about being present in that moment and being like, enjoy this moment, enjoy the celebration. And if it's not something that you're going to, like a wedding or a birthday party or graduation or something like that, what is happening in your life right now where you can just pause and be like, oh my God, I'm gonna celebrate where I am right now. I'm gonna be proud of my accomplishments, even though I'm not at the end yet, but that's what I'm working towards. And I've done a lot to get myself here. And I think for me, that card keeps saying, like, it's like that critic that's like, oh, you're not there yet. You're not there yet. But then if I look back and I'm like, oh, but I've built all this stuff already, it keeps reminding me, like, be proud of what you have done so far. So this is also a really good card for me to remind me of that. What would you say, Pierre, for the Four of Wands?
You know what? So the Four of Inspiration, because that's the one you drew, I know, and I'm not going to reveal, I know what you're going to see tonight. I've seen it twice. And
oh my God, I'm going to be singing, right?
I want you to hold on to everything that you have said, because I always think that, you talk about the idea of the Emperor, and I think, we forget that the Emperor is a four card. And for some people, it's a challenging card. But the other thing that it is also, as a card that is associated to Aries, is it's a fire card. So in the same way that the Four of Wands, the Four of Inspiration, is a fire card, and I think if I remember right, there were like little torches as well that are in the corner, that there's fire in the image of the card as well. So I always think, it's a card of inspiration, literally in this case, but it is a card of stability, and those two things together, what they create is empowerment. So there is power in that card in the same way there's power in the Emperor card. And, I love how you describe that idea of it is also, because it's stable, because it creates some kind of structure, it really does give us an opportunity to kind of stop, celebrate, and enjoy where we are, knowing that we are going to continue forward in that journey. So, to go back to what you're going to see tonight, enjoy the moment, because it is a wonderful experience, but it is also surprisingly inspiring. That's all I'm going to say. It is surprisingly inspiring. Has some wonderful messages that will be surprising to you. So keep that, maybe you tuck that card in, in your,
And bring it,
clutch or your purse,
well, I
or whatever
always bring,
you bring.
I have my little pocket decks that go everywhere with me. So maybe I'll pull the 4 of Wands and I'll put that on top of my deck that I'll have in my purse with me. So
there you go. All right. Awesome.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Thank you. Like, what a great episode. We talked about stalker cards, and we talked about jumpers, and we talked about cards at the bottom. We had all kinds of different cards that showed up, from the Tower and Death to the Queen of Wands and the Magician.
And the 4 of Wands.
4 of Wands, just showed up. Yeah. So, before, we kind of sign off, Bonnie, how about letting people know what you got and where people can find you, other than this evening? Well, it won't be this evening because we won't release, we know where we can find you this evening.
Yes. You can find me at our website, which is Tarot with Bonnie and Peter. You can also go to my website, which is breathewithbonnie.com, or tarotwithbonnieandpeter.com. or breathewithbonnie.com. There's you can see what I have going on. The best way to know what I have going on is to get on my email list. I don't post a lot on social media, but I'm pretty good about letting people know what I have in through email. So I am working on a brand new mentorship that's coming up. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that. And I'm in this death phase right now. So some things are
going,
some things are going away, and some new things are being created. So, but I always have everything up to date on my website. So that's the best place. Or contact me, like go to my website. You can email me right from there. And if there's something that you're interested in, let me know. And then we can make that happen. So thank you, Pierre.
Come on, people.
How about
seriously,
you?
Right? Bonnie is a tarot mentor. Come on, people. Jump on that opportunity.
You're so funny. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah. How about me? Well, the death card was very appropriate because I've alluded to it in a couple of past episodes that there might be some big changes coming. Big changes are coming. So for those of you who sign up to my newsletter, you will have heard I've actually been accepted into a graduate school program. So I'm heading off to full-time in-person study in September in a Master's of Public and International Affairs, which has nothing to do with the tarot. It doesn't mean that I won't be bringing my tarot practice with me, but it does mean that I am cutting away a lot of things, including I've given my notice of resignation to my local public library. I'm the chair of the board there and won't be as of June 30th. And then June 30th is also the very last day in which I will be booking client and mentorship. So I'm going to put that on pause until the end of this program, which won't end until May of 2028. So if you're looking to get a mentor, quick mentoring in, or you're looking to get a quick consultation in, June 30th, 2026 is the last day to be able to do that. I will be putting a pin in not all parts of my tarot practice, but in those 2 parts of my tarot practice for sure. Like Bonnie, I have a newsletter that I keep people up to date in, and that I will be continuing. Obviously not as it will be more infrequent or less frequent, but it will still include updates, including possible dates where, I say I open the books with, some time on my hands. But right now, that death card's a great indicator where it's like, what, I've got to kind of put an end to things to make space for other things. And then I'll be able to use that 2 of Pentacles energy and perhaps put some more balls into the air once this kind of big ball decides just how much space it's going to take. So, I also, the Cards of the Zodiac final episode is the Cards of Gemini, which either will be just coming up on May the 14th, or it might be just past. Nonetheless, you can always sign up. Look for a package that puts together the cards based on their elements. So that will be something that, almost is the best of the Cards of the Zodiac. And that'll be available both through my newsletter and on my website, which I didn't mention, which is peterwhitetarot.com. And of course, you can find me also at tarotwithbonnieandpeter.com. So that's what I've got going on.
It's so exciting, Peter. I'm really happy for you. I love school. I love learning. So I think I think if I could be a professional student for my whole life, I would definitely do that. So I'm really excited for you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I'm thinking what an interesting time to be studying global affairs as well. And with kind of the state of the world that we live in, there'll be certainly a lot of meat to look at as far as, how things go. And I still will put a big focus on education, which of course that's my passion, but looking at it through a more global lens as well. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. A little nervous and apprehensive, obviously. Pretty sure I'll be the oldest person in the program, but who knows, right?
The wisest, probably.
Well, okay. But yeah, so that's what we both got going on. Again, a huge thank you for you to join us on our journey. Episode 76. We haven't forgotten we got episode 78, which is an entire tarot deck's worth of episodes coming up soon. If you have ideas for episode 78, let us know. But let us know quickly in the comments. We're starting to have that plan moving forward now. Like, share, follow, subscribe, comment, engage, all of those things that help put us in front of other people. We love to hear from you. We love that you've taken the time here, and we hope to see you again on Tarot with Bonnie and Peter. Bye for now, everyone.
Bye.